Hey everybody, welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. Today we were talking to KamalaDevi McClure. Uh, she wrote this book, Shamans, and she was also in a Showtime docu-series and about open relationships. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So welcome back.
Thank you.
So I learned about this through a client and then subsequently friends in California. I didn't even know that there was such a thing. I really feel kind of George Bush about this whole thing. Like I just had
How,
no
how
idea.
long have you been married?
I've been married for since let's see for 22 years, and so I'm 57. So this was not a thing that was open and discussed. I'm sure it was a thing regardless, but it was just not something in that I even knew. It's almost like I lack creativity. Like I wouldn't even have thought of it as an option. But I then subsequently had talked to a few friends of mine that are gay. That is very typical, where you have an older man and a younger man together. And in order for them to have a harmonious relationship, they have to have a polyamorous relationship where he was then describing like there's triangles and W's and I don't know. At one point it
The whole
sounded like a
geometry
sphere.
class.
Yes, there's a
Yeah.
whole. So just for people who this is new to as well as well, maybe you can explain what the triangle and the
So I'll,
W's.
I'll start with the explanation of polyamory. The typical definition
Okay.
is when you have multiple relationships or the capacity to have multiple relationships, because maybe you only have one but you want more,
Right.
with the informed consent of everyone involved.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not cheating, and it's very different than other types of relationships like don't ask, don't tell, or even swinging. Polyamory is, it tends to be where there's more long term, there's an emphasis on communication and long term relationships. And so, you bring up your gay friends example, but there's lots of other examples for of people for whom it works. I know people in the BDSM or kink community might also, be in love or married to someone. Hey, if you're and you're not want to have a submissive on the side, or you might want to have permission to go to dungeons or play parties. So there's many, many different communities in which this a type of polyamorous arrangement might work. But what's an interesting note, CJ, is that I became polyamorous that probably the same year that you got married.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, so it was not a thing back then. I had never heard the word. I was a lesbian at the time, and I fell in love with my yoga teacher, and it was a man. And my girlfriend said, "Wow, I see how deeply in love you are with him, and I love you, and I don't want to hold you back from being in love. So I'm willing to just, allow you as a bisexual to have a boyfriend and a girlfriend without breaking up." And I
Wow.
was just like, what? But that was an example of a V. You were asking about geometry, right? So I was in the middle, I had a boyfriend and a girlfriend, and she hated men. So she wouldn't touch him.
Right. So she wouldn't be a triangle. If she had a relationship with him, then it'd be a triangle. But
Exactly.
you were
Yeah.
V. Okay, got it.
So that 20 years or 22 years ago or whatever it was started off a long journey, and all the way until 7 years ago we did a show on Showtime called Polyamory, Married and Dating.
Hmm.
And so that's been where we invited the cameras into our house, even into our bedroom,
Oh my
where my
goodness.
my husband and I and our son, who lived together, invited another couple who we were in love with to come and live with us. So it really shared the ins and outs of our, quadratic, connection.
Okay, so with the couple, you basically, all four of you would be making love together, and then you would be making love to the woman and man, and your husband would be making love with the woman and man. So that's a that's a square.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
you
that's
got
a new term. Okay.
it.
All right, so and then you talk about your Superpod. Tell us a little bit. Is that with the girlfriend that you had from long ago? Is it the same
So,
girlfriend?
so she and I separated several years after I graduated from, college. So that's a long time ago. But
Right.
I do have girlfriends in my life now who I've been with for over 18 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when I love someone, I always love them. There's a permanent place in my heart. And the reason to break up is, if they have a relationship who's monogamous and doesn't want anything to do with me, then sure, I'll give them distance, but they're still in my heart. And so the Superpod is, this husband and wife that I told you we moved in with. They don't live with us anymore, but they're still lovers and friends and like auntie and uncle to my son. So they're part of a network, an intimate network of lovers who all know about each other and are also practicing polyamory.
So you're kind of like I don't know, like a sphere. There's no longer geometry.
It's hard because there's coming and going. We're not closed, right? We're open to having other lovers and friends, and so there's not a particular shape. It's just a deep sense of family.
Wow. And what is that like for your son? Because does he have several mommies and daddies, or how? Because I have my sister-in-law is gay, and they have, she's had several relationships, and her partner has had, one relationship, so she has probably like four mommies, no daddies. How does this work in your super pod?
So as far as parenting goes, most of my lovers are not, some are, but not a lot of parents. And although he has a deep relationship with them and it might feel like an aunt or an uncle, he has a strong sense of
You're talking about he is your son, Devi.
My son, Devin, is 13 years old, and he's got an immense sense of security around a lot of adult attention. And
wow.
He also knows that his parents still date, and he knows that makes us unique. But he's 13, and honestly, this astounds me as much as you. Polyamory in junior high is a common term. It's like the kids know, just like, oh, your parents are gay, your parents are, it's not like a, deep, dark secret or anything that makes us that different now. But because I've been doing it for 22 years, it was then.
Right.
So I've gotten to watch that evolution.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I know that for the young people that I know, there is a sense of like, how do you know? Like, there's more pressure because I don't know if I'm bi or straight or gay. And it's actually a lot of pressure to know. Whereas before, it's like you didn't have a choice. You just kind of like did whatever you wanted and then dealt with the consequences. Now it almost seems like you have these choices and you have to be sure about them and not sure, and how can you know? And it seems actually more of a challenge.
When I put my thumb on the pulse of what's happening, I think the options are liberating. The challenge is the media and social media and the internet and the messages that people are getting. Like, I think that's genuinely where it's more complicated to be a teen these days than it was for you and I.
Yeah, and what are the challenging messages that they're hearing?
Well, when you have access to the internet and to varying degrees of that being censored, there's hate campaigns, there's judgment, there's also pornography and misinformation, and as well as like too much information that kids, like if you're developmentally, like you're just coming into your own changes and there's hormones, like to actually get barraged by all kinds of adult messaging it's a lot to handle as a youth.
Yeah, and so how's your son? So here you have a son who's lived with polyamory in his life. How is he deciding, or is he deciding, or does he know?
He was 8 years old when he said he's got a gay uncle, and I have a trans woman as a lover, and like he has been exposed to a lot of variety. And he said at 8 years old, he said, I don't know if I'm gay or straight or bi or poly. I'm not sexual yet. So when I'm sexual, I'll decide that. So he just really had that sense, and he really at 13, he's still in that place of I don't need to know right now.
Yeah.
I'm just me.
It's funny. My friend was like, I wish I could be Parisian, where all this is just like state of being in a lot of European countries. So, what do you think is the benefit? Like now, having been in these relationships over the last 20 or so years, like what do you see as the benefits of having an open relationship?
It's okay. So first and foremost, it's not for everyone. So you're not going to get a sales pitch from me about
Right.
how it's great, unless it's the true shape of your heart. Like if this is who you are and your full expression is to love and love again and love many people and to not have to hide that or, and if you really value truth, above and beyond like freedom and love, like you want to know how your partners feel about other people and you want to support your partners in their full expression. If that's who you are, this is the path that will reward you in ways that I can't even begin to enumerate. If you're coming to it from a place of like, hey, I'm bored, I want to spice up my marriage, or you're coming to it from a place of like, oh, I've been cheating all my life. Maybe I should just try, like having more lovers. Like it is so hard to give up the habit of lying, sneaking, cheating. This is not about that. This is actually about loving and loving more. And then what happens as a consequence of being yourself is, you get more, you get to crowdsource your needs, which is wonderful. But then you get multiple reflections about the truth of who you are. And CJ, because I know how spiritual you are and how your show is oriented towards that, and your listeners probably know there's more to relationship than just, finding a nesting partner.
Mm-hmm.
These multiple relationships will reflect back multiple aspects of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's exponentially a growth path. Spiritually, you just see so much of yourself that you can't see if you're just with one person your whole
Wow,
life.
that's really interesting. There's in family systems, I think it's called in Virginia Satir, there's a process where you talk to various parts. And so I had a friend who interviewed several different people and their relationships to her father. And what they said, like every single person had a different relationship with her father. And depending on who they were, they brought out different aspects of him. And so through hearing the composite of all the different multifaceted relationships he had, from work people to her own sister to her mother to her uncle to his aunt to friend, it's like, oh my gosh, I get to see the whole person who is my father, not my own, way of, connection to my father, but like all the whole circle. And it was astounding, she said, because I just saw him as a whole person. And so, what I'm hearing also, if you're that person and had relationships with all those people, you also feel a sense of wholeness because there's
Was her
something, huh?
was her father alive?
She was when she found, she's like, she said, that's when I truly understand this whole, you just don't know the full picture of someone because who they are with different people it's different.
Totally. There's a
Yeah.
whole universe that's born in every relationship, like between you and your husband or between you and is it a son that you have or a daughter?
Son, I have two sons.
Yeah. So with each of your boys, it's a whole different, brings out a different part of you.
It does.
And, and so the reason I asked if your friend was, her father was passed away is because sometimes that revelation of an experience only happens at someone's wake when
Mm-hmm.
everybody of their life is invited and they get to eulogize that person. And it's like, for the first time as I was listening to you, I thought, wow, being polyamorous is like a living wake.
It is. You die before you die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're like, wow, like I get it. I understand. It seems like you would understand, but I have that with all my relationships. Like I feel like I'm because I'm fairly conscious. I know how I'm acting differently with this friend versus that friend. And my husband and I, because we're super analytical, we'll dissect it in infinitum. Like, oh, I noticed you were like this way with your friends from work, and this way with the kids, and we'll analyze how each of those relationships bring out a different aspect of ourselves, and how all of those things, and how we're not limited to my relationship with my husband, but we're defined by all of these relationships. So I can see that if you're in a polyamorous relationship, because there's an intensity when you're making love with someone in an intimate relationship, that would just be like like way more intense
For
than
sure.
yeah.
It's not the path of least effort. Like it is a immense steep hill to climb,
Oh,
and it's worth it.
your
It's
cat's
a
agreeing in the background. Yes, I
that's right.
agree.
Yeah, I have a poly cat.
You have a polycat. I love it. This has been wonderful. We've been talking to KamalaDevi about her book, Sex Shamans, True Stories of Sacred Sexuality and Awakening. Thank you so much for being here.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and would love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.